Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome to Mother Knits. It has been such a beautiful summer. I feel like I've really started to find my stride in making and motherhood and sharing it all with you. There's just been something that started to click in the past few weeks, and it feels really good to be here and show you some of the things that I'm feeling really proud of from this summer. I've been reflecting a lot on making and the ritual of making and the growth that happens in making. And I'm just really excited to share all of that with you today, go through the finished objects from this summer so far. And we're starting to get here towards the end of the month of August and into September. And it's just that really special time of year where we're in that in-between of seasons, and it's definitely not quite fall, but it's not the intensity of summer. I love this time of year. For me, it's such a respite. It's such a moment. It to me feels more like New Year's than New Year's. When everyone's doing New Year's resolutions, I'm like, give me winter, give me space, give me more time to rest. I'm not in that mood to sort of get a new planner and do all of that. For me, it's always this time of year, right around September 1st, that I feel that invigoration of organization and really thinking through processes and applying all of that to my making. And so there's definitely a heavy influence of that attitude and energy in today's video, which I'm excited about. So let's go ahead and get started and share with you my finished objects. So this summer was quite a big leap for me in my knitting skills, I would say. And that all started with the 24 Birds Shawl Mystery Knit Along. That was by Helen Stewart. That was this beast of a shawl. Can you believe I knitted this? I sometimes can't. It's just enormous. I can hold it with both of my hands stretched out, and I've been loving having this in the evenings, wrapping it around me. It's so soft. I think this is 100% wool, some merino wool, some not, but it is absolutely delicious. The more that I've used it, the more I'm loving it. It's sort of breaking in as I use it. And I just am so proud of this. I did a whole video on it, and I would say this project got me ready for this project, which is what I'm wearing today, my next finished object. That I wanted to really highlight as a very successful summer knit, which is the Faye Top. I remember the night that I found this pattern and almost impulsively was just like, I must have this. This is such a special romantic look. And I was ready for my next challenge. And this garment was it. This pattern was it. It had lace, it had bubbles, it had cables, it had a very unique yarn that I'd never used before. So everything about it was a new adventure. Everything about it was really satisfying the part of me that loves to learn and loves to push the edges of what I know how to do. I bet I cast this project on at 10 times, and I'm not exaggerating it. It actually might be more than that. To get going on this project for me was very tricky. You start at the back, which essentially looks very much like the front. You can see the stitch line here. That panel is what you begin with. And then you knit down where you join the body together and then knit in the round all the way down. But getting that first panel going, on the back panel going, was tricky. It was really tricky, and I got cold feet. I set the project down for a while, and then that's when I picked up the 24 Birds Shawl. The reason I think that was able to get me to a skill level where I could pick this up a bit more confidently is because of the repetitive nature of that shawl. So I've been thinking about this, and you know, for a while I was thinking about how can I become a very talented, confident knitter as quickly as possible. And what I have found, I've got yarn like floating around my nose. Whew. What I've found are projects where you have to repeat something over and over and over again really drills it in. So when you can get to that flow where you're not even really thinking about it as much, it goes on autopilot. There's something about that where it just sinks in to your bones and you just have it. It's in your hands. Your hands know what to do. And almost to a point sometimes where you're just like, kind of like when you're driving sometimes and you're like, wait a second, who's been driving the car the last 30 seconds because you're somewhere else? That is very much what starts to happen in my experience with knitting. So let's talk, what else do I want to share with you guys about this? I used the recommended yarn that the designer calls for. It is a linen, I think 50% linen, 50% wool yarn. It is very unique. It has an incredible drape after blocking. It was a bit clunky and lumpy before I blocked it. You can kind of see here, it just, and it did grow a bit. You guys, I gotta get better about doing those measurements, but I just am not a person who pays attention to those details. And maybe I should be, and probably as I continue on this knitting journey, I will start to have a desire to know those, you know, the centimeters of growth, pre-blocking to post-blocking, but I am just not that kind of maker. I do not get caught up in the details. They don't bother me. I just want to make it and move on. And I know that that might be bothersome for some of you. And if it is, I would honestly like to know. If you really like to know the details of those things, please comment and tell me. But I'm just not that kind of maker. I'm very much like, I'm an abstract painter. I never do the same thing twice, I feel like. And if I do, there's some sort of spin or variation on it that's challenging to me. I am just really thrilled with how this looks. I will say, as far as styling a top like this, if you are thinking about taking this project on, I highly recommend the yarn that she calls for. The stitch definition is exquisite. I think something with a linen in it is just something to try. I think that it is, it's a very dry fabric, so perfect for warmer days. Because it's so airy and so roomy, I think that it's a perfect summer top for the dry heat that I live in. Because I would imagine in the if you live in a very, very, very humid place, maybe this would start to get a little bit prickly, but for me, this feels good. This feels just fine. I'm very, very happy with the feel of it. When I first got the yarn, I was a little concerned, like, what is this gonna be like wearing this up against the skin? And I really am enjoying it. I will say, for styling it, I far prefer the look of this top when it is tucked in. I'm not a fan of it untucked. So pretty much anytime I want to wear this top, I'm imagining it's going to be a little bit more of a formal occasion or something where I'm putting a bit of effort into my outfit. I don't see this as being a lounge around the house kind of a thing. It just isn't that top. It isn't that look. And that's okay with me to have something that is a little bit more of a special occasion top. The way that I like the look of this is absolutely having it tucked in. And that was something that I was really considering when I was doing the ribbing for this, and the bind off at the bottom. I just did a very simple loop over bind off. Didn't do a stretchy bind off. This thing is so wide and there's so much positive ease in it. Didn't feel a need to do anything stretchy and take the time to do that. Just felt honestly like a waste of time and yarn. And I was down, oh my goodness, you guys, I had the tiniest little scrap. I'll insert a picture here so that you can see just the tiniest amount of yarn. It really was getting down to a yarn chicken situation. And so that was even more cause for me as I started to see my yarn ball getting super small. I was like, there is no tubular cast off happening here. I need to cast off soon. And I knew I was at a length, especially with blocking on the way, that it was going to grow just enough that I would be really happy. And I am with the length of this top. I would say it's a little more oversized than I had anticipated as far as the width goes, but I would say this is probably one of the most successful looks for a knitted garment I have ever done. And I've done some sweaters and cardigans and jackets and things, and this top is, for me, by far just the most beautiful and most successful knit that I've had so far. So it feels like such a celebration to be able to wear it. And I wore it out and grabbed a juice, and you know, the person behind the counter was like, oh my gosh, I love your outfit. And it just was just that moment of like the first time wearing it out that you kind of want to happen. And I got it, like it happened, and it was great. So that just felt super special. I'm super happy with it. What a rewarding project. So let's move on and chat about some of the works in progress. So recently I have just absolutely loved, I don't know if you guys ever see these baskets for sale at Whole Foods or natural food stores, but man, this is quite a handy little knitting basket, especially if you're working with something with more than one color. And I have really enjoyed, and I just have like a teensy tiny little pair of scissors and a little needle and a crochet hook, and it's just all in this like little basket. And I've been carrying this around, like, you know, this has just been my little project basket, and it's working out beautifully. I absolutely adore it. It's been so fun. I'm like popping it in the stroller and then on our way to the pool or wherever else, and it's just been kind of great. I sort of love it. I love having a basket to carry around things sometimes instead of a bag. I feel like it's a little more protected in a way. This is the Pressed Flowers Vest by Amy Christophers. You guys can see that a bit of progress has been made on this one. I already featured this knit in that, you know, all of the nightmares and knitting blunders that had been happening for me getting this project going, which was kind of a freak thing, and that's not super typical for me. And the yarns I'm using for this project. So first we have this really special hand-dyed yarn that I had my eyes on, and it's a cotton yarn with a few other things blended in. I think it's a rayon. I think it's a cotton rayon blend, hand-dyed here in Arizona. And it has such a beautiful sheen to it, which I really like. I think it's so pretty. And I knew with the mosaic knitting in this vest, I wanted it to be a fall vest. And I didn't want it to be too warm. Living in Arizona, that's not the most practical thing. So I was like, what if I combined a cotton rayon yarn, which is, you know, this very lightweight plant fiber yarn, totally falling apart. Don't you guys hate that when you cake up the plant fiber yarns and they just want to fall apart? That's been part of the reason the basket's been so helpful. This guy's sticking together like a champ. And this is a cashmere yarn that I was gifted forever ago by my husband. Got this for me. It's from Amazon. I have to admit, I wasn't sure, just coming from Amazon, and there wasn't a lot of information on the label. I was a little bit nervous to get started working with this. I just didn't know what to expect, and it is lovely. It's absolutely lovely. These two textures are kind of interesting to put together. It's creating quite a halo, you guys can see. And then on the ribbing, where it's just that cotton, it's just shiny and a really nice sheen. But as you guys can see, this is worked from the bottom up. So this is the ribbing at the bottom, and we're just working our way up. And I debated for a long time, is the white the background and my beautiful variegated yarn, is that the flower? But I was a little nervous about having a garment that has so much like white as the background. I just was nervous about that, and I thought it would be kind of pretty to have just solid white flowers. And here we are. Here is what we have. So I am really cutting it close, like within something like 20 yards of having enough of this main color for this project. So I'm probably gonna keep it pretty cropped, wearing this over a very basic white t-shirt, or maybe even like a white button-up shirt if I can find like a linen, very casual button-up that I could like roll up the sleeves and have this on over top. I think that would be really, really cute. I think it's gonna go great with these pants that I have from Christy Dawn, this, you know, slate color. I think that's a very cute combination, because what I loved about this yarn is about this main color is I can see this going with denim. I can see this going with more of a caramel, like khaki pant. I see this going with just so many things that I already own. It's such a wearable color for me. It just reminds me of denim, or like, there's just that like really pretty blue and almost this taupe, a little pop of that rust orange. I love it so much. I got that yarn from my local yarn shop, Knitwits, used to be in Sedona, Arizona. She's now moved out to Cottonwood. The cashmere yarn, I can definitely link below if you're interested in it. It's so, so special. I think I'm gonna have just enough left over when I'm done with this to do something else, maybe a ribbed tank top, which I like, a spaghetti strap tank top, which would be awesome to have to wear under things. I think that would be just so luxurious and amazing. So this project's coming along. I've memorized the flower repeat, which is really helpful. And I'll probably jump into, you know, Casey from Young Folk Knits is doing a mosaic knit along. I'm probably gonna jump in and share the progress with this one along the way. I do want to wear that in September, so I'm knitting away pretty quickly on it because I want to wear it soon. And another works in progress that I just cast on maybe a week ago, maybe less, is another Ranunculus with this really, really special yarn that I used in my pressed flowers shawl as the backdrop color. So we've got the pressed flowers vest. I've already done the pressed flowers shawl, which is why that vest was so easy to just pick it up and get it going. I've made a ranunculus before and did a video on that. That one was ended up gifted to my daughter because it was pretty cropped and it honestly just looked so darling on her that I was like, you can have that one. And I was very pregnant at the time. It was not wearable, and so it just kind of became her top. And every time I see her wear it, I'm like, I really want one of those for myself. So I've got the yoke started. I'm a little bit slow to pick this up and really start running with it again because there's a few pretty big mistakes in the yoke design. And I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, do I rip back the 5 or 6 rows and like frog it and then try to work my needle back through? That sounds like such a nightmare that I just cannot be bothered with right now, that I think I'm gonna just have to live with the mistakes and just live with it and turn away when and just try to not focus in on that like few rows where things just got off a little bit. I showed it to my husband I was like, you know, just be honest with me. Is this something obvious? And he's like, of course not. No, I think you should just keep knitting it. No, you know, you're the only one who can see that. And I think that there is just something, do you guys ever struggle with that? It's like, you're the only one who's going to see it and notice it. And so it's going to bother you. And really at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. Like, do you feel really good about putting it on and wearing it? So I don't know. I started it and there was such great momentum going with this piece, such a wearable color. I love it a lot. I love this yarn, but I'm pausing. I feel like it's in timeout for a minute while I figure out what I want to do, if I want to rip back or not. I'm probably not going to. I'm probably going to just keep knitting away on it. And I have definitely enough yarn on this where I want it to be a little bit of a longer length on this, not too long, but a little bit, like probably hit me at the hips, and sleeves down to my wrist. I want this to be like a fall sweater. And so I've been really enjoying this up until a few rows ago, and then I started to get a little discouraged and unsure of myself and how I wanted to move forward with it. But I'm thinking about it. I'm just not sure what to do next. Essentially what happened is you can see those eyelets there almost have like a V shape, and that is supposed to, it's like a zigzag shape around the yoke. And it's really supposed to be like a diamond shape there. Oh well, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. So it's just kind of sitting. We'll see what I decide. I'm just not sure yet. And then the other thing that I cast on this morning, when I was feeling really frustrated about my Ranunculus project and just kind of looking at it, not really wanting to knit on it, been knitting a lot on the pressed flowers. I just wanted something new. This is a beautiful pattern by Andrea Mowry. I think it's called the Ramble Shawl. This is the yarn that I chose for it. And I met this beautiful yarn dyer at an Arizona yarn festival. And you guys, Vincent, my newest little babe, he was like such a little peanut. He was so small. And I want to say he was like 2 weeks old. And it was one of those first times of really getting out of the house and you know, getting up and going out. And maybe he was 3 weeks old. I feel like 2 weeks is so soon. Anywho, there was a yarn festival, a wool festival happening in Arizona, which doesn't happen all that often. And my husband and kids all came with me. It was such a fun day. We had a really good time. I picked up my first spindle there. It was just a really so sweet to connect with the other makers and the yarn dyers and just the farmer, all of it. It was just an amazing experience. I'm going to put the yarn company up where I got this yarn and the colors, but she has such a fun spin on her yarns where she sort of becomes inspired by mythical tales or stories or books and infuses that into her collections of yarn that come out. And this combination, I knew I was going there with the intent of the Ramble Shawl was top of mind because I do not know how to knit brioche, and I was ready to tackle that. I was ready to dive into that. And this pattern by Andrea Mowry seemed like appropriate for a first-time brioche adventure. And I don't know anything about brioche. I am just starting to dip in. There are two sections to this shawl. There's a garter stitch section, which then turns into, you finish with the brioche. And so right now I'm just enjoying, this was just today, this morning, kind of getting the pattern going. And I think this is a really fun combination of colors. And I think the cream that's in here, it's actually very similar to what I'm wearing, brings this like very bright, very confetti kind of color into a very wearable, fun garment. And so I'm hoping that this is something I'm going to enjoy. Like, it's not going to be too bright for me, but I've known ever since I got the yarn, like, you know what, if I'm not thrilled with the color, like if it is too bright for me, it's going to be a beautiful shawl for my daughter, or I think we're just going to share it. I don't think you necessarily need to have like, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes she can wear it, sometimes I can wear it. I'm very, very okay with that. But this kind of oatmeal color is just really gorgeous. And so I'll put the yarn info again. It's just, I was just failing today trying to come up with like, where are these yarns from? Because it's been such a whirlwind of a summer of traveling, and I don't know where my yarn labels went. I want to start taping them in my maker notebook after the experience of just like, what happened to all these yarn labels? Where did they go? I thought they were tucked into the yarn cake. Anyway, I think I'm gonna start taping them into my maker's notebook, and that way they are safe and will not be lost. So very sweet little project, very squishy. The yarn is just lovely. And I'm really excited about that project. I'm excited about learning brioche. That's my next learning adventure, is like really figuring that out and how that's gonna come along. Now, I've got a few things that I'm really excited about making and I'm thinking about and are kind of next up on my list. So this first one is another pattern by Andrea Mowry, the Velacore, that's right. I was just going through my yarn stash last night and really thinking about, you know, I've got some really gorgeous yarns that I do not like these yarns to sit in the box. They need to be worn. They need to be knitted as soon as possible. And that would be the leftover yarn from my very first knitwear garment, which was that pink cardigan, the Elton. And so I have quite a bit of yarn left over, a full skein plus a little bit more. This gorgeous turquoise from Vine yarn, which I got, originally wanted this to be in my 24 birds shawl, and then it didn't make the cut. Some other colors came in and won, but it's a gorgeous fingering weight yarn that I want to get on the needles. I want to start working with this. And then I've got just a little bit left for that third contrast color in this beautiful marigold color, which is in that pressed flowers shawl. Now, this is not for me. This would definitely be a top for my daughter. So this would be the main color, this pink color, and then this would sort of be the striping that goes through it, which I think is kind of perfect because there's just some little splashes of green and blue and turquoise in this yarn. And then this is just a touch of, I think it calls for like 40 yards or something. So I think I've got enough here where that'll be the perfect third color. And she doesn't know this, but I want to cast this on and be a top that she can wear. I absolutely love seeing her wear that ranunculus around. Is just inspiring me to knit more tops for her. So I'm going to do the smallest size in that because it looks like a top that's going to be very like cool looking if it's a little oversized, and I think she's gonna love that. It definitely seems like a pattern that I could see myself knitting up more than once and could take on many, many different looks and variations in that pattern. So I'm gonna start off with one for her. So that is my plan for that yarn. And then I've got other yarn here, 6 little caked up lace weight yarns. This was a gift from my husband. Absolutely beautiful lace weight yarn. It is an alpaca silk blend. It is just like the definition of a luxurious, shiny, beautiful yarn. And what I'd like to do with this is hold it double and do another ranunculus. So I'm really wanting that ranunculus to be one that I have many different modified versions of that same pattern. And that raspberry color, I'm really envisioning that as certainly a more again, like a more dressed up top, something I'd wear out to dinner. When I'm really wanting to feel a bit more dressed up, when I'm really wanting to feel a bit more formal, where this yarn, I see myself wearing this all the time. This is one I'm hopeful that will just be such an easy one to throw on and wear with a lot of different things. And I think this color lends well to that. And the fabric that's coming up, it's nice and sturdy and just really wearable, really my color, really a good everyday kind of a ranunculus. And then the dressier one, and then, you know, the one for my daughter. And I just, there's so many different yarns and looks that I want to create with that pattern. So that is also another one. I think having a ranunculus always on the needles is kind of an interesting thing, at least maybe for the next few months. I find that to be a fascinating thing, to find a few patterns that it's just really fun to knit over and over. So that one is just, I know that's so basic, and I know that there's a lot of people who do that, but I get why, because that fit and the look is just so easy to make your own. It's just so feminine. It's just can go winter or summer or short sleeve or long sleeve or turtleneck or not. And I just think it's brilliant. So I'm going to be knitting a bunch of versions of it anytime that I've got some really beautiful yarn and I'm like, I'm not sure what to do with this. Let's make a ranunculus. Why not? These are the updates this week. This is what I've been up to, what's on my needles. Finished object. So proud of this finished object. I hope you guys are just having the best week. It's so nice to sit down and chat with you, talk about making and celebrating the end. You know, the end of summer is here. We're starting to transition into fall, just starting. And I just think that's such an exciting time for us knitters when we get that first crispy air moment. It's like, oh my gosh, it's coming. It's time, you know, cast on everything. So that's what I've been doing, and it's just been the best. It's been so fun. So sending you guys a big hug and lots of love, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.